My ex-wife sent the divorce forms while I was overseas fighting a war. Then she regretted it. You never expect it to come in the mail. That's the part that sticks with me the most. I'd always thought endings came with slammed doors or long, drawn-out fights in kitchens under dim lights, or that final stare across a parking lot when there's nothing left to say. Not a manila envelope with creases from its journey across the ocean, dropped casually on my bunk like junk mail. We'd just gotten back from a 5-day mission, hot, relentless, and loud in the way that makes silence afterwards feel suffocating. My shirt clung to me with salt and sweat, and my right boot still squelched from stepping into something I didn't want to think about. I dropped my gear, peeled off the layers like skin, and sat on the edge of the cot, mind buzzing with static and dust. That's when I saw it wedged between a package of socks from my sister and a battered envelope from some charity I didn't remember donating to. I knew her handwriting right away. Even though my name was typed out, the address was scrawled in her familiar looping script, the way she used to write notes and stick them on the fridge. Don't forget garbage day, love you, drive safe, your coffee, in the thermos 3. My hands were cracked. The kind of dirt that never really comes out, no matter how many times you wash. My fingers trembled as I opened it, but not because I was afraid. I was tired. Bone-deep, soul-rotting tired, the kind that turns everything, letters, meals, your own reflection, into background noise. But the moment I pulled out the papers, I felt my stomach tight, that sick twist of knowing before your brain even catches up. It was divorce paperwork. Folded neatly, pre-filled, she'd already signed her name at the bottom. Blue ink, not black. For some reason, that detail pierced me. She always used black for official things, taxes, mortgage paperwork, job applications. Blue was what she used for birthday cards, for doodles in the margins, for writing my name on wrapped Christmas gifts. There was no letter, not really, just a short note clipped to the top. It's not you, it's me. I can't do this anymore, I'm sorry. That was it, no greetings, no name, no love, Emily. Just a sentence and a half that unraveled the last 7 years of my life. I stared at it, letting the words melt and reform, hoping maybe if I looked long enough I'd see something different. That it was a mistake or a joke or that I'd wake up. But no, the ink didn't smudge, the lines stayed the same. I folded it back up slowly, like maybe if I reversed the process I could undo it. Outside, someone was laughing, maybe Parker or Diaz, I couldn't tell anymore. The sun was setting over the wire fences, casting everything in that strange, burnt orange glow that makes the world look soft, almost beautiful if you squint hard enough. It felt obscene. I kept my eyes on that letter as my breathing went shallow. My chest tightened, like someone had wrapped their hands around my ribs and was squeezing slowly, methodically. I wanted to stand, scream, throw something, but I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I sat there, jaw clenched, heart cracking quietly, while the last tether to my old life unraveled right there in my lap. I didn't even cry, not then. What hit me first was the shame. Isn't that strange? Not grief, not anger, shame. Like I'd done something wrong by not being there. Like my absence had been a kind of betrayal I didn't realize I was committing. And maybe it was. Maybe she'd waited as long as she could. Maybe she'd stared at her phone night after night with nothing but the sound of her own breath and a dark hallway and pictures on the wall that stopped meaning anything. I remember the last time I heard her voice. It was a crackly call over WhatsApp, the connection skipping every third word. I was sitting on a plastic chair with one leg shorter than the rest, balancing it on a rock, mosquitoes gnawing at my neck. I miss you, she'd said, voice faint but warm. I'll be home soon, I told her. You've been saying that for 2 years. I laughed, trying to make light of it. Yeah, well, I'm a bad liar. She didn't laugh back, just sighed. I don't know how to do this anymore, Liam. I feel like I'm disappearing. I should have said something then, should have asked her to hold on or told her the truth that I was disappearing too. Piece by piece, every time I saw something I couldn't forget, every time I woke up wondering who I'd be if I ever came home, but I said what I always said. We'll be okay. Now she was gone, not to death, not to illness, but by choice. She pulled her love out from under me like a tablecloth trick that didn't quite work. Everything crashed. That night I didn't eat, just laid back on my cot in the heat, the thin mattress pressing into my spine, my rifle across my chest like a shield. I stared at the corrugated steel ceiling, watching the fan spin slow and hypnotic. My mouth was dry. I could still taste the grit from the patrol hours earlier. My hands ached, not from work, but from holding on too tightly to something that wasn't there anymore. I finally cried when everyone else had gone to sleep, face buried in the pillow, trying to muffle it like I was ashamed of sounding human. We met at a bookstore back when I was stationed in Norfolk. I dropped a copy of Slaughterhouse-Five on the floor and she picked it up, held it like something delicate. "You actually like Vonnegut?" she asked, scrunching her nose. "I pretend to," I said. "Makes me look smarter." She smiled then, God, that smile, like something breaking open. Our first date was cheap Thai food and laughing too loud. I remember the way she picked basil leaves out of her pad see-ew and lined them up on a napkin like fallen soldiers. She told me I had sad eyes and I didn't know what to say to that. She kissed me before I dropped her off. No hesitation, just leaned in and did it. I asked her to marry me after my second deployment. It was December, snow in her hair. She said yes with her whole face. I used to think love was the thing that kept you steady, that it was the thread you clung to when the world tried to take everything else. But sometimes love is just another weight you carry, and when it breaks, you don't fall, you float, untethered, breathless. The envelope is still in my duffel. I haven't signed the papers. I haven't told anyone. What would I even say? That the woman who promised forever decided forever was too long, that I went halfway around the world to fight a war and came back with nothing but bruises and empty hands. I don't blame her, not really. That's the worst part. I can't even hate her. Because she was right. I wasn't the same anymore. I'd stopped being someone she could touch. I'd become a voice on a bad connection, a silhouette in digital photos, a memory wearing a uniform. And now I was just a man sitting alone in the dark, with no home to return to. The war outside was brutal, yes, but it was honest. This paper, this silence, this clean slice through my chest, this was worse. This was personal. There's a moment after something breaks where everything goes quiet, not in the world, not really, but inside you. Like your body hasn't caught up with your mind yet. Like your nervous system is still waiting for the next order. That's what the days felt like after the letter. I didn't tell anyone, not even Diaz, who had a habit of hovering too close and asking too many questions with those wide, worried eyes like a kid watching his house burn down and hoping the fire's just a dream. I snapped at him once, the day after I got the papers. He asked me if I wanted the last protein bar. I said, "Do I look like I give a fuck about protein right now?" He didn't ask again. The weird thing was, I didn't feel like I was falling apart. I didn't have that Hollywood breakdown. No bottle in a dark corner, no shouting at the sky. It was more like everything inside me folded in on itself. I wasn't even angry at Emily. I just felt hollow, like my body was still moving, eating, walking, sleeping when I could. But the part of me that felt tethered to life, to something bigger than the mission, had been cut loose and drifted into some atmosphere I couldn't reach. So I volunteered for everything. Night patrols, convoys, mop-up shifts, even the clerical stuff no one wanted, checking reports, logging supply deliveries, counting rounds twice, 3 times. I kept moving because stopping meant thinking. And when you think, the ghosts show up. You start wondering if you could have written more, said more, asked more questions when she seemed distant on the phone. You remember the time she didn't call for a week, and when she did, her voice was tired and you didn't push. Or the time she mentioned her new friend Ben from work, he gets it, you know, and you laughed it off. There's a pattern to self-blame. It doesn't roar, it hums, quiet and persistent like a low frequency only you can hear. I started to hate the sun. It felt like a lie shining over all this brokenness, like the world had earned its warmth. Everything was still brown, beige, and gray, the colors of war. The taste of dust never left your mouth, no matter how much water you drank. My boots started to wear through at the heel, but I didn't ask for new ones. I liked the pain. It reminded me I still had feet, still had somewhere to walk. One night, Holt found me sitting on an overturned crate, just staring at nothing. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just dropped a book in my lap and said, "Try this," helped me when my second wife walked out. It was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I opened it once, read a line about suffering and purpose, and closed it again. The idea of meaning felt offensive. Some people have kids or careers or faith. I had a rifle and a ring I couldn't take off. And then she emailed. It came on a Tuesday, I remember, because Tuesdays were mail drop days and I was still stupidly hoping maybe she'd sent something else. A real letter, a photo, a voice memo of her laughing. Instead, it was digital, cold, pixelated. I made a mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. I miss you. Please talk to me. My thumb hovered over the reply button. My heart didn't leap. It didn't even twitch. Just sat there, heavy and still, like a weight in my chest that had learned to get comfortable. I didn't reply, not that day, not the next. I read her message over and over, trying to imagine the version of her that wrote it. Was she crying, regretting everything, or was it just guilt, soft, manageable guilt, the kind you get when you realize you walked away too fast, too far, and now the silence feels like a crime? I hated how much I wanted it to be real, the regrets, the longing, like if I could just believe it, maybe I could rewind, pretend the envelope never came, pretend I was still someone who mattered. But I didn't know if I wanted her back. And that terrified me more than losing her. One night during patrol, Diaz asked me quietly, "Do you believe in second chances?" I didn't answer right away. We were walking through a village that had been bombed to dust 6 months earlier. Craters where children used to play, walls pockmarked with holes. The wind howled through hollow windows. Eventually I said, "Only if something's still alive to rebuild." He looked at me for a long time, like he didn't know if I meant her or myself. The truth is, I didn't either. That week I finally wrote back, not much, just, "I got your email, I'm not ready to talk yet." She responded with silence. I think she knew not to push, or maybe she didn't know what to say either. Maybe she was hoping I'd tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that I still loved her. But love, I'd learned, isn't just a feeling, it's a place, a country, and once you've left, getting back means crossing every border all over again without a map. And I didn't know where she was anymore. Didn't know where I was either. So I kept moving, quietly, mechanically, through the days, through the gunfire and the stillness in between. Waiting for something inside me to make a sound. Something I could follow. Anything at all. Coming home was supposed to feel like waking up. That's what the old-timers told us, that first breath of American air would jolt something alive in your bones again. But for me, stepping off that plane was like walking into a room you used to live in and realizing all the furniture had been rearranged. Familiar, but wrong. Everything was too loud, too bright, too clean. The floors at Dulles were polished to the point of nausea. Everyone looked like they'd just come from a yoga class or a business meeting, and I was there in uniform with my duffel slung over one shoulder, feeling like a museum exhibit. Nobody looked at me, not really. They glanced and then looked away quickly, unsure if acknowledging me meant they had to feel something. Emily was waiting near the exit. She hadn't said she would come. I hadn't asked. But there she was, standing in jeans and a green sweater I recognized from a photo we took in Vermont back when we still took photos. Her hair was longer, falling around her face like it was trying to protect her from something or someone. She didn't move, just locked eyes with me from across the terminal. Her lips parted like she might say my name, but no sound came. I stood there, the crowd parting around us, and felt like I was looking at a ghost. Not because she looked different, but because she didn't feel real anymore. She felt like something I used to believe in. We didn't hug, didn't touch, just walked side by side to the parking lot. She brought the old Civic. I hadn't seen it in 3 years, but it still smelled like her, citrus and a little lavender. She drove while I stared out the window, watching the highways turn into side streets into neighborhoods. We didn't talk until we got to the diner, the one we used to go to every Saturday morning back when we believed in rituals. She parked in the same spot, like muscle memory had dragged her there. Inside, it was exactly the same: plastic booths, laminated menus, and old jukebox in the corner that still didn't work. We sat in a booth by the window. The waitress smiled like she remembered us. I wanted to tell her, "Don't, we're not them anymore." Emily ordered tea. I asked for coffee. She looked down at the table while the waitress walked away, tracing the curve of a spoon with her fingertip. "I thought about you every day," she said quietly. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I knew she needed me to. "I panicked," she continued. "I felt like I was drowning and no one was throwing me a rope." "I was getting shot at," I said. My voice wasn't angry, just flat. She flinched. "I know." "No," I said, "I don't think you do." She bit her lip. Tears welled up, quick and unannounced, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand like she was embarrassed. I didn't know how to be alone. I didn't know how to hold both things at once, loving you and hating the distance. I thought you'd never come back. "I thought I didn't matter anymore," I said. We sat there in the silence that followed, our drinks untouched. The hum of the place around us felt miles away. We weren't part of it. We were in our own little time capsule of pain. "I still love you," she whispered, barely audible. And that's when it hit me. The confrontation wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a truth. I looked at her, really looked. She was still beautiful, still kind, still the woman I once promised the rest of my life to. But I wasn't the man who made that promise anymore. "I don't know if I do," I said. The words felt like pebbles in my throat, heavy but necessary. She closed her eyes and exhaled like she'd been waiting for me to say that, even if it broke her. "I'm sorry," I added. She opened her eyes, red-rimmed but calm. "You don't have to be." Outside, it started to drizzle, just a light tapping on the window, a gentle reminder that time doesn't stop for grief. We didn't finish our drinks, didn't say much else. I paid the check. She drove me to the place I'd rented, just a one-bedroom walk-up with peeling paint and a flickering porch light. Before I got out of the car, she touched my hand. "I really did try," she said. "I know," I said. "So did I." That was it. No closure, no epic farewell, just two people sitting in the aftermath of something they couldn't salvage, letting the silence do what words couldn't. She drove off. I didn't watch her go. I stood there in the rain, my duffel at my feet, key in my hand, and for the first time in years I realized I was free. Not in the joyful, liberating way, but in the lonely, terrifying sense that I belonged to no one. And no one belonged to me. The apartment was small, just enough room for a bed, a couch that sagged in the middle, and a table with one good leg and one I had to prop up with an old phone book. It was the kind of place you pass on the street and never really see, but it was mine. That mattered. I moved in with nothing but the duffel bag I'd carried halfway around the world and the letter I still hadn't thrown away. It lived in the bottom drawer of the nightstand, beneath a pair of socks and a stack of folded t-shirts. Some days I forgot it was there. Other days it felt like it weighed more than the whole drawer. The first few weeks were strange in the way empty spaces are. No sounds but the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the floorboards when I paced at night. I slept with the window cracked, even in the cold, just to hear something real. Traffic, wind, stray dogs barking at nothing. Anything to make the silence feel less like a verdict. I didn't decorate. I bought a coffee maker, a cheap rug, and a lamp from a thrift store down the road. I hung a photo of me and my unit on the wall, not because I wanted to remember the war, but because it felt like proof I'd survived it. The picture was grainy and crooked, and none of us were smiling. That felt honest. I kept my wedding ring in a drawer for a while, took it out some mornings, slipped it on just to see if it still fit. It always did. The indent on my finger was still there, a soft groove in the skin like a scar that hadn't figured out how to fade yet. Eventually, I stopped putting it on. I didn't throw it away. I couldn't, but I let it be what it was, a reminder, not a chain. I found a therapist, VA-funded, Vietnam vet with a flat voice and a face like sun-dried leather. His office smelled like old paper and black coffee. First thing he said was, "Don't sugarcoat it. I've heard worse." So I didn't. I told him about the war, about the night patrols, the blood, the letter. I told him about Emily, about the quiet that followed her absence, about how nothing felt real unless it hurt. He nodded a lot, didn't interrupt, just let me unravel, and somehow that helped. It gave the chaos inside me a shape. "You didn't fail," he told me one afternoon while I sat staring at a coffee stain on his carpet. "You just changed, and sometimes people don't change with you." That sentence landed in me like a seed, not a revelation, just a quiet, slow-growing truth. I started writing again, not letters, those were done, but notes to myself, half-thoughts, feelings I didn't know what to do with. I'd scribble them on receipts, on the backs of napkins, in the margins of library books. I didn't reread them, didn't need to. It wasn't about making sense. It was about letting the thoughts out, like steam from a valve before everything exploded. I got a job at a hardware store, nothing fancy, just stacking shelves, fixing locks, giving people advice about things I pretended to know more about than I did. The owner was a quiet man named Carl who didn't ask questions. He let me take long lunch breaks and leave early on bad days. We didn't talk about the war. We didn't talk about divorce, just drills, screws, and sandpaper grit. I started eating better, walking more, drinking less. I even bought a plant. It died in 2 weeks, but still progress. Emily wrote again, a letter this time, handwritten. Said she hoped I was okay, that she thought about me whenever it rained, that she was seeing someone new and it wasn't serious, but it felt easy. I didn't cry. I didn't write back either. I just folded the letter and put it in the same drawer as the first one, side by side, a beginning and an end. Months passed. I started to sleep through the night, not always, but more than before. The dreams got quieter. The war stopped following me into every room. One morning I woke up, made coffee, stepped out onto the little balcony, and realized I hadn't thought about her in days. Not with anger, not with longing, just hadn't thought at all. The sky was gray, a soft breeze rattled the railing. Down below, someone was walking a dog, humming a song I didn't recognize. The world didn't feel sharp anymore, just muted, manageable. I took a sip of coffee, let it sit on my tongue. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was peace. And peace, I'd learned, was something you built, not something you found, one quiet morning at a time. That was the beginning, not dramatic, not loud. Just mine.